Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I've been, this is a book. I done read it a couple of times, but sometimes I go back and read it once a year. It's called The Effects of Fitnah by Sheikh Abdul Razak bin Abdullah Muhsin al-Badr. The Effects of Fitnah. And it kind of details, how the effects of fitna that it has on a person's deen, on their ibadah, and just their overall way of life. The effects of fitna. A lot of fitna, man. So, I just want to share a little bit from the introduction from it that's kind of powerful, especially being that it's Ramadan and that the shaitan is locked up. People should really be studying their Nafs, and I've really been studying my Nafs and taking a real good look at myself, taking a deep dive, and really overanalyzing myself, my ways, my strengths, my weaknesses. And it made me pick this book up because being that I analyze myself and I analyze my movements, I analyze my environment and who I'm around, who I choose to not be around. And I notice sometimes, with my interactions, some people life just full of fitna. Like they don't know life without fitna. Like every day their life is fitna. Muslim, non-Muslim. And when you involve yourself with them, try to be within their company, you're going to feel the effects of some fitna because their life is just full of fitna. So, and analyzing myself and took a look at this book. Let me show y'all, let me read a little bit from this right here. Where it starts off with a quote that says, "How can one protect themselves who do not know from which they need to protect themselves from?" Like, how can you protect yourself and you don't even know what to protect yourself from? So first and foremost, we know who is the biggest enemy that we have outside of the enemy that's within our own self. Shaitan. Allah Azza wa Jal tell us in the Quran that Shaitan is an open enemy to you. Like the enemy that's within Shaitan is not hidden. Like sometimes you may have friends and family members, and you think that they, y'all think there's a lot of love there, but within their heart, they really your enemy. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, and I'm starting to learn, sometimes hate comes in the form of admiration. Because sometimes people hate on people and then try to be like that person. Sometimes hate comes in the form of admiration. So you got to know who your enemy is first and foremost in Shaitan. And once you know that Shaitan is your enemy, then you learn to protect yourself from Shaitan. Because even with a lot of the fitna and different things that you have to deal with, if it isn't a fitna as in a trial or a test that you brought up on yourself from your own deeds, that initial spark of it all started with Shaitan. And then that fitna. So you'll learn to protect yourself from Shaitan. And then with the fitna, how can you protect yourself from fitna when you don't even know what is fitna? Like, sometimes your life can be so chaotic and full of fitna that you don't recognize it as fitna. Just like some people don't know true peace until they achieve it. And like they say, once people achieve that true peace, they'll do anything to protect it. But some people don't know it until they get away from it. And once you find that true peace and you get away from it, then you'll know what fitna is. You see what I'm saying? Then you'll know what fitna is. And then you'll learn to protect yourself from fitna. So that's basically what he's saying. How can somebody protect themselves from something that they don't even know they should be protecting themselves from? So look what it says, right? The one who does not know fitna and does not know its effects, its outcomes, and its commonalities, perhaps they will fall into some of it. Right? Perhaps they will fall into some of it and be stained by it. And it will cause harm to their life. Then after that, what comes after that is regret that overtakes them. Sometimes that regret brings about grief. And then that grief brings about sorrow. And then sometimes that sorrow brings about depression if you dwell in it too long. But keep in mind, these things can start with some fitna that you overlooked. Right? So it says, knowing the effects of fitna serves as a great benefit for the servants of Allah, and is useful to them as a tremendous benefit because it is from examining the outcomes and consequences of matters and issues. Examine situations. Examine choices that you want to make. And then look at the outcome. It's back to what I was talking about in a previous video. Like the Quran say, look at the path of the people that chose it before you, and look at what their outcome was. Sometimes you may see some individuals that had some success, that made that choice, but it's something that they did different than the ones who failed. For instance, let's put it this way, just to bring it down to a very general term. In the American school system, everybody goes to kindergarten. Everybody goes to the first grade, the second grade. But everybody doesn't pass with all A's. Y'all on the same path, but y'all are having different outcomes. Now, it's possible that everybody doesn't have the exact same intellect. That's always a possibility. And then sometimes some people not doing what the other person did that succeeded. So sometimes you see people take a path and they have some success, but they doing something different than the ones who failed. So when you look at that, look at the ones who succeeded in that path. Because I'm going to point something out. Generally the ones that succeeded in that path is hard to reach. But you have access, easy access, to all the people that failed. And unfortunately, they don't even know why they failed. But what they can instill in you is failure. So when you examine it, you got to examine it from all of those aspects. Right? Like, I'm going to pause and say something. My father told me years ago, like back in like 97, he was heavy into basketball, right? Real heavy. And he told me one time, and I peeped the overlay for the underlay. He told me, in America, now this is in the Michael Jordan era, right? He told me in America there's possibly some people out there that's just as great as Michael Jordan or better. But the difference between him and those people is those people had somebody around them that didn't want them to make it. And that was heavy, because sometimes you will be attached to your hindrance. The reason why you don't reach your peak or your greatness is because you're surrounded by people that don't want you to make it. Because if you make it, your success is their failure. You see what I'm saying? So like, it reminds me of a thing like years ago that I heard 50 Cent say, the rapper. You know, not to be quoting a rapper, but he said, man, his grandfather told him, man, you know, have you ever, you know, like, take a look at these guys right here. The reason they never got no further than the individuals that they have around, there's a reason for that. And the reason is because you sitting around with a whole bunch of people that don't have nothing going on, you're not going to have nothing going on yourself. So, in essence, and I'm setting it up for what I want to discuss, if you're not careful, you can become a product of your environment. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you're around people and their whole entire environment is fitna. And when you choose to be around that and be in the company of those people, you're going to feel the effects of that fitna. So because I like to look at everything through an Islamic lens. To be honest with you, I really got to a point in the last 10 years, maybe the last 10 years, I really only know how to look at things through an Islamic lens. No matter what problems I have, I look at it through the eyes of the deen to solve it. You see what I'm saying? That's because of the strength that I started to attain in Tawheed. You know what I'm saying? Understanding Aqidah and Minhaj. I see some people, and this isn't a knock, this isn't a judgment, but I see some Muslims that don't even know how to turn to the deen when it's time to solve problems. They resort back to the criminal that they once was, or the conniving, whatever it was before Islam. They resort back to that person. They'll put the deen down to become that to solve problems. And I've been that before, and it never worked for me. And that's how I got to the point where, alhamdulillah, because God didn't come from Allah, but I got to the point where I started to view everything through an Islamic lens. So like, even what I'm speaking about, you got to know what fitna is, you got to know the effects of fitna and all of its commonalities. And then you got to examine situations, examine the outcomes, the possible outcomes, examine the consequences. Examine the consequences of success in the outcome, and examine the consequences of failure of the outcome. And examine the effects of getting stuck in between, just getting completely hindered, possibly because of your environment. So it continues on to say, this is considered to be from the servant's sound judgment. Also firasa, that intellect that kind of comes from Allah. Well, Allah be your hearing and Allah be your seeing. You know, that guidance comes from Allah. So that sound judgment, you know what I'm saying? You want to be that type of Muslim where Allah be that for you, where you have a clear Islamic judgment. So, like I say, this is considered to be from the servant's sound judgment when you Examine the outcomes and the consequences of situations and matters. It's a tremendous benefit of knowing the effects of fitnah, and it's a great benefit just knowing the effects of fitnah, right? So meaning that before they embark upon an affair, they examine it out, its outcomes and its effects. So that's just something small in the introduction. And that's something, man, that we all need to add to our to-do list of istiqamah. When we go down our to-do list and we start to istiqamu, and our daily things that we doing from istiqamah, one of them should be thoroughly examining issues and certain situations in our daily lives and look for fitnah. You got to pay attention to the environment, and then you got to come up with a plan of success. Of course, taqwa, success, comes from Allah. So you got to stay right with Allah, right? You got to do your istikhara. You could do your istikhara, the dua, and then you could do the 2 rakats for istikhara and then do the dua. A lot of people don't know, like right now I could just be sitting around and make the dua for istikhara about a situation. But that tawas is a wasila. I could do 2 rakats, which is of course the most recommended, the highly recommended act is to do the 2 rakats for istikhara. You see what I'm saying? Because you offering something up, man. You trying to get in the good graces of Allah by doing 2 rakats and then doing the dua for istikhara. But this is before you go into these situations and these issues and these things, you know, jobs, marriage, money matters, seeking knowledge, anything, friendships, even, you know, if you're considering eating at a certain place. When you start to go into the hadiths, they say the Rasul taught them istikhara the same way that he taught them to memorize the Quran. That's how serious istikhara, making istikhara was to them. The dua and the 2 rakats followed up with the dua for istikhara. So when you start to examine things and examine your environment and thoroughly weigh out your choices through an Islamic lens, because when you do it that way and you do it the right way, it can be ibadah. So that way, even if you fail, there's some success in it that get counted with Allah. You see what I'm saying? Even if Allah doesn't grant it to you, you could have had some good things in there that's going to weigh heavy, or at least add some weight to your scale of good deeds. Because now, doing it the right way through that Islamic lens with the right intentions, the right sincerity, and doing it in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah, now it's ibadah. And then you got to keep in mind, you trying to please Allah with this. Like, even if it's getting married, you want to please Allah with your marriage. You want to please Allah with your parenting. You want to please Allah with being a son or a daughter to your parents. You see what I'm saying? So, being that it's Ramadan, and just adding that jewel in, that we need to start paying real close attention to fitnah in our environments, because you can easily become a product of your environment. And as I've been paying attention to my nafs, taking shaitan completely out of it, I noticed that when shaitan was involved, I kind of looked at something that I possibly looked at myself like I was wrong, like I was probably being hard on myself, But now I realize that was from the shaitan. When I should have continued on the path that I was on. See, sometimes you could be doing something right and in accordance with shaitan, and because other people might feel away, shaitan might slip in and make you feel bad about being the way that you should be. And then you will stop doing it. So like, what I noticed about me was that I'm paying attention this Ramadan. The only thing that really angers me and upsets me is seeing Muslims misguide other Muslims. I hate it. I hate to see Muslims misguiding other Muslims, especially from Muslims that know they're not really like that. But they will misguide other Muslims because they want to portray an image. I hate it. I hate Muslims taking advantage of other Muslims, be it the masjid or whatever. I hate it. And those things I speak out against firmly. They upset me. But sometimes you could be in an environment where these things don't bother people because they don't have an Islamic lens. They might get to arguing and getting mad at each other and falling out over a basketball game, over a boxing match, right? Over, like I've seen people argue over the rim sizes, them 22s, no, they 24s. But I'm talking about Muslims and tires. But somebody could be sitting around corrupting somebody else's Islam, and I'll be the only person that feels some type of way about it. So I notice I get mad about the corruption of the deen. They get mad about what type of wax you should be using, with the best type of wax to use on your car. And that stuff is trivial to me. So the things that I notice some of the Muslims in my environment, what they get mad about, I don't care about. But what I get mad about and have some passion about, it involves corruption of the deen. And then sometimes they will make you, the shaitan will slip in and make you feel some type of way. But you're supposed to be compassionate about people destroying and messing up this deen and creating fitnah. So that's what I had. I really examined myself and said, man, you know, the stuff you be tripping about, man, and speaking out about, it's matters that corrupt the deen, that corrupt Muslims. But like all this other stuff, these people, man, you know, seeing husbands and wives, man, arguing over who cooked. Oh, you ain't cooked nothing, and I don't care nothing about that. But when you get to playing with that deen, we don't have issues. Now, I'm not saying nobody perfect, supposed to be perfect, but not when you doing something wrong and then say, Islam make it permissible, it's permissible in the deen. Are we going to always have issues? So that's me, something that I notice about myself and my Nafs, and then I realize you putting yourself in the wrong environment, Sock. You putting yourself in the wrong environment. So that's something that I also looked at myself, because I deal with a lot of different Muslims, right? Not that I think I'm better, but I don't deal with the Muslims in my city unless I have to, because we not the same. No disrespect to them. So like a lot of the Muslims that I deal with, all we talk about is Islam. Everything we discuss is Islam. Like 99, we'll say, just to be fair, 97% of my conversations with, and now this is on a daily. Now I work with non-Muslims, but the way my job is, I can kind of keep to myself, so I don't really have to have conversations with people that I'm at work with. So anytime it's a conversation, it's literally about work. Like, okay, we got to go over here. This right here got to get done. Cool. This person ain't at work today. Can you pick that little slack up for them? Cool, I got it. You know, every once in a while they might bring up like, what do you think about Jake Paul and Mike Tyson? But that conversation ain't gonna go past 5 minutes. So, and everything outside of that only deal with Muslims. And anybody that I'm talking to that's not Muslim is my mother and my stepfather. Like on a daily basis. Everybody else, Muslim. Every friend. So like, I'm dealing with some Muslims, all they do is study. All they doing is trying to develop in Arabic. Trying to get stronger with their Arabic. Trying to memorize Quran. Like, wallahi. Well, it's a new day because it's after midnight, but a few hours ago, I was sitting up having a conversation with a 23-year-old female hafid of the Quran. Her and her husband. A 23-year-old female hafid of the Quran. To where I even sat down and did a trial lesson with her. Wallahi, over stuff that I'd uncovered. But I just wanted to see how they was as a teacher. Because I was considering some of the youth that at this mentoring program, perhaps bringing this teacher in on the weekend to help them with the Quran. Although I can do it, but because of the environment, me actually doing it bother people that don't even know Alif Bata. So like, in this environment here, these Muslims don't, in this environment, they don't even want to learn Alif Bata. And that's to them, that's on them. But when you used to being around people that all you do is talk about Islam, and we talking about serious matters, and all we do is talk about this lecture, this scholar, this class, these classes. Wallahi, like I'm talking to other people that's teaching. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking to people that's teaching. Young people, 30, teaching Arabic, teaching Quran. You know, just chopping up with people, man, that just had that Islamic lens because of their environment. You see what I'm saying? Talking about Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, we talking about Abu Dhar, you know, like wallahi, talking to some Muslims, a Muslim sister earlier today, they hit me up with a question about some things about Khadijah. And, you know, being the first woman to enter Jannah. Like if you could see my phone, somebody hit me up early this morning about some questions about the 8 gates of Jannah. Somebody had gave them a list, like, is this list accurate? They asked me, was this list accurate? And I'm like, this is the one I'm familiar with. Like, no matter what's going on, like, everything involves the deen. So when you used to being in that type of environment, like sound Islamic knowledge, you know what I'm saying? Where can I, you know, another question, where can I go through the books of hadiths and just find a list of all the prayers? Istikhara, Tahajjud, Taraweeh, Salatul Tasbih, Tawbah. And, you know, we having conversations like that. Look, turn it is, woo out the woo. You know, you could probably Google the list, but when you go look them up through your books of hadiths, it's going to show you how to do those prayers. Like, a lot of people not familiar with Salatul Tasbih. Very beneficial. I would recommend a lot of people look that up and try to find it. But my point is, when you used to dealing with that, those type of Muslims all day, like wallahi, sisters hitting me up, reading me whole books in Arabic and translating them. Like, man, I was going through this book. Look, I just want to read you this. I want to read this book to you, and then translating it. The whole book, Arabic stronger than mine. Done stayed in Yemen for 7 years. You know what I'm saying? Individuals who got a large amount of the Quran memorized. We going through different ayahs. Then when you're around individuals who don't even want to memorize nothing, don't want to take a class, don't want to read a book. But when this is the majority of the community, it's a fitna for me. Not saying it's wrong for them to be like that. It's a fitna for me because I don't know how to be around it no more. Like one of my companions who I understand why he always around that. I couldn't do it. I mean, I could, but because I know how to be around without being around. But I used to just tell him a long time ago, man, like about 8 years ago. It ain't no disrespect to him, but I don't even know how to talk to the Muslims in this community no more. You know what I'm saying? I'm the fitna. I don't know how to talk to him no more. You know what I'm saying? When you sitting around talking about the deen and they saying stuff like, why we got to keep talking about Islam, man? Let's talk about baseball. For me, I don't even want to be around no more. You know what I'm saying? In my head, man, I'd be better off sitting around somewhere reading the Quran. Like, not trying to be funny, but I'll say, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but a very large percentage of the time when I'm in a Muslim gathering in this city outside of Jumar, I got books with me and I'm sitting around, wallahi, I'm sitting around reading books while they talking. Or certain times where I done had my laptop and a class was coming up that I had online, and I went and sat off in the corner and did my class. And then I come back when I got done with my class, then I come back and sit down with them. And if I don't have my headphones on, listening to a lecture or some Arabic or a khutbah that was given somewhere else that I missed, wallahi, I'm sitting there reading books. Not because I don't want to talk to them, but I developed that thing, man, where I heard like certain students of knowledge where they were saying a student of knowledge has time for everything else. Some people just find a little bit of time to read. No, when you really into your studies, there's just time for everything else. Let me find some time to eat real quick. You see what I'm saying? I got to study. So I'm sitting around reading books. This is offensive to them. You see what I'm saying? And if I don't have a book, it's because we having some type of meeting about coming together doing something Islamically. Which, those type of things where I be looking at the person who I allowed to talk me into coming out there like, yeah, man, it's about time for me to get in rotation. So and this is me, like I say, this is me looking at myself and like, and it's Ramadan, man. Sometimes when you just used to that environment, and sometimes to give it an analogy, sometimes, man, a person who a super duper baller in the NBA, not saying I'm that in Islam, but when you in the NBA, you used to playing with NBA players, and then you come around some people who really play basketball like kindergartners. But due to the fact that everybody around them play basketball like kindergartners, they think they can ball. And, you know, it saddens me because when I see new Muslims come to the community, this is the best version of Islam that they're going to see. Because they don't really leave here. You know, this just like even when you be in Chicago, it's certain people in Chicago who ain't even really never left their side of Chicago. You know what I'm saying? Like some people barely even leave their own neighborhood. So like this area, like some of these people, they never really go anywhere for at least a significant amount of time. So they don't even have the pleasure of being around the type of Islam. They don't even know certain levels of Islam even exist. These Muslims are their role models. And they're going to become a product of that environment. And then an individual like me comes around, I'm a fitna because I know there's more to Islam than what they're going to get here. What they getting here don't even scratch the surface. And that's just being honest. You know what I'm saying? And it's just unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. You know, when you understand that people generally become the product of their environment, and you know that the environment is not bred for success. Like, let's just for individuals who been in the street or who come from their city. How many people did you see in your city under those bad circumstances of the street life, the gang life, trouble homes? How many of them did you ever really see outgrow that? How many of them outgrew it? The most that they probably became is what their parents was. Or perhaps what their uncle was, or what their auntie was, or what their grandmother was. How many of them rose above and outgrew that environment? Not very many. And then the ones who did outgrow it, it was because they left it. You see what I'm saying? It was because they left it. And then, like, people who can hoop, or they good at sports. Some of them could have been some of the greatest athletes you ever seen, but they were surrounded by people that didn't want to see them make it. So they never outgrew their environment. Like, case in point, it was a little cat here, man. I knew him real good. You know what I'm saying? He came up with like my little cousin, my little brother and them. Now they could hoop dude, but he understood them X's and O's. He was fundamental. You know what I'm saying? He was a team player. And he had a three-pointer back when people wasn't shooting threes. When black people wasn't shooting threes, only white guys shot threes. And this dude was getting all type of scholarships, but he couldn't take care of his grades. So he had to go to little colleges to get his grades together. They was calling this man out to try out for the Chicago Bulls. They was trying to send him to the Pro League overseas. A couple of days before he was supposed to leave to go overseas, he done signed a contract for a couple $100,000 a year to play basketball. But a couple of days before he was supposed to leave, he won a little bit of money at the gambling houses. 10,000, 20,000. Some people, the number is inflated. Some people say 20,000. Some people say 10, some people say 15. We'll give him 20,000. He won 20,000 in a 48-hour poker game. 20,000. And the man said, instead of going overseas and playing basketball, I think his contract was like $225,000, $250,000 a year. But you don't play 365 days. You play a season and then you off. $225,000. Right? We'll just even say, because like I say, the numbers is different, but we'll say $200,000. But because he won $20,000 in a 48-hour poker game, this man said, I'm not going to go overseas and play basketball. I'm going to stay here and become a professional gambler. This isn't even a professional league. This is a bootleg houses hidden in alleys. You know what I'm saying? Where every once in a while, cats come up in there with a mask on, like, lay down or get laid down. This ain't Vegas. This ain't professional tournaments. This gambling houses in alleys and the dead-end streets with no street lights. Because he became a product of his environment. He never seen anybody like what he was going to be allowed to become. Now, there was a couple of cats that, he heard about, but he didn't know them, that did go overseas. but they came from good homes and never played in the street the same level that he did. So coming from what he come from, he never seen what he was trying to become. So he didn't believe in it. And that's what I'm saying. Some of these Muslims, that's new Muslims, they never seen anything greater than these Muslims that they don't know the reality of. But some of us older individuals do. You see what I'm saying? And then these older cats trying to play OGs and I'm the OG of the community, this and that. We know that they don't know no ding, but these new people don't. But when this is the vast majority, when we talking about, listen, when this is 99.99% of the community, they don't see nothing greater than that. Where they're around people like, you don't even have to learn, you don't have to learn Islam to be a good Muslim. You don't have to do all that reading. You don't have to study. You don't have to take classes to be a good Muslim. So, we got to analyze ourselves, man. And, some of us, man, need to grow up and get to the point where we look at ourselves and say, are we misleading the Muslims? Like, are we a fitna, the wrong type of fitna? We can't blame stuff on the shaitan now. It's Ramadan. We got to look at our nafs. And then we need to start doing stuff, man, like learning exactly what fitna is and the effects of fitna. Like I was, excuse me. I was listening to Tar here today. He gave a football today. And, he was speaking on some terminology, man, and saying how some people don't understand that when they're trying to block something or stop something, or they get in the way and they talking about something, they not thinking about like how many people it affect. Like he even said, like Muslims who fixing up a raggedy car, but they really not fixing it up good. They just making it look good on the outside, but they know it's like that, and then they sell it to somebody. They not thinking about how that might affect this person's family and their kids. Car might break down while they trying to get their kids to school. They might not have money put aside to get that car fixed, or that money that they do have might have to take away from their kids to get this car fixed that you knew was raggedy, that you sold them. So they was he was speaking on that main concept of not knowing how your actions, how many people it may affect. You need to look into those things, man. And sometimes I sit down and say, man, don't let shaitan trick you, man. If you compassionate and the only thing that really upsets you is stuff like people playing with the deen, but like I say, man, I'm used to that environment, man. I came up listening to like individuals like Abu Talba, man. I remember listening to a story where Abu Talba saying when he was young, he had 10 friends. They went and did some little chores and got allowances where they came up with like $20-$25 a piece. And then they put their money together and went and bought a whole set of Sahih Bukhari. They teenagers. And then he said they all took one book. And then they all made a pact. We're going to complete this book in 1 month. But every week or every day they would meet and talk about what they had read that day or that week. And then when they got done with that month, they exchanged books until they all completed a whole set of Sahih Bukhari. So all of them done completed it. They all talked about it and went through it as they was reading that particular book. But then he said, then these same friends, as they sitting down coming up, and now they done read Sahih Bukhari, and now they growing in their deen, and they implement what they read in Sahih Bukhari. He said all of them came up with a certain time frame, and they all came up with $1,000 a piece. And he said now they got $10,000, and then they went and got a building. And they went and got a building, and they was able to do the work on it themselves, paint it, They had a little money aside to get carpet and everything that they needed. Started a masjid. You know, I remember him sitting up. So I'm used to listening to individuals like that, who builders, who coming up in the deen, who trying to grow, who seeking knowledge, who going to Egypt. Like, I'm used to people. You know, I have conversation with individuals who over in Egypt, who been in Egypt. You know, people who in Africa that's studying, as opposed to being in a community with just to be honest, not no knock, but people who don't study nothing, don't read no books, don't want to read no books, ain't completed a whole book. Some of them haven't even read the Quran. It's hard to have a conversation with them about Islam because they only know a very thin layer of it, and it's just the reality. But I don't look at them at, that's not a bad thing. That's where they want to be. But it's difficult for me because I'm used to being around high level individuals. Like, even if it's people who might have some character flaws. You know, like some of my people from Philly, like wallahi, I done had people from Philly, man, come down here, stay in my masjid with me, you know what I'm saying? We kick the bobos, you know. Other place, you know, come stay with me, you know what I'm saying? Like, and we really be on some ding. You know, like I remember a time, man, you know, when my brother was telling me, man, he knew some people, man, that it was a Muslim couple. And said all they would do, their bills was due at the end of the month. So at the beginning of the month, they would go do like some little chores and some odd jobs. Like, they had little money-making things, halal money-making things set up, where in that first week they had enough money to pay all of their bills. And then they just sat around and ding. You know, like when I'm sitting around with sisters, right? And in their marriages, and you know what I'm saying, where they sitting around, for every surah that they would memorize 10 du'as. You know, when you sitting around individuals that got like 50 du'as memorized, 100 du'as, you know, 20, 30 dhikrs, 50 surahs. You know what I'm saying? People who sitting around memorizing hadiths with the isnads. And this is the majority of your companions. People defending the Sunnah. It's hard to be around people that don't even read the Quran. You gonna look like the problem. You know what I'm saying? So, alhamdulillah, man, excellent book. We need to learn the effects of fitnah and you know, figure out if we're fitnah, really study our nafs and look at things. You know, you might be on the right course, but Shaitan tricked you and took you off of it. And then you might have been on the wrong course that Shaitan had you on. But now that Ramadan is in, you got a good chance to really look at yourself and examine yourself and figure out how much of a problem you are, and then solve being the problem. Okay, I'm a problem. Let me solve it. And I sit down and say, this real talk. Wallahi, cool with Muslims in New York, DC, Jersey, Baltimore, Philly, Detroit, Egypt, different parts of Africa, right? Virginia, right? Inner city, cool. Even like the people I grew up with who non-Muslims. No problems. Go everywhere, anywhere in the city, no matter what gangs it is. Be peaceful. But the only time I'm faced with fitnah is when I'm in the presence of 3-4 Muslims. It's just a particular group of Muslims. Whenever I'm around them, I feel the effects of fitnah. But whenever I'm not around them, every single day in their life, they caught up in some type of fitna with somebody. At least, if not every single day, the majority of their days, not just a little bit of the day, the majority of their days and the majority of the day, they involved with some fitna. When they at home, they have some fitna in their home. Then they go to work. They involved in some fitna and arguing at home, at work. They leave work and go be around some people. They involved in some fitna and stuff at work. I mean, around whoever they done left work to go be around. I don't even know what fitna is until I bump into one of them. You know what I'm saying? And now the shaitan got to be taken out of it. The shaitan got to be taken out of it. And now, like during Ramadan, it's amazing at what I'm seeing right now in Ramadan, to where they fitna has completely blossomed into a full blown tree. Well, alhamdulillah, man. Inshallah, man, so people could benefit from it, man. And you know, pay attention to your environment. Pay attention to yourself. First and foremost, if you're a problem, solve it. Study fitna. Study the effects of fitna. Examine all your situations and the outcome. Everything. Even if it's what you eating. Is this going to make me unhealthy? Is this going to make me healthy? Is there benefit in this, what I'm going to eat? Is there benefit in me laying around being lazy? You know, I could spend this time reading a book. I could spend this time memorizing the Quran. You know, weigh it all out. And chase Jannah, man. Chase Jannah. And if you got to be solo dolo, man, you got to be solo dolo. Because, see, the kuffar like to protect their peace. The Muslim that's striving to be mu'min with the goal of wanting to be a Muslim, our mindset should be, I got to protect my Jannah. Even if you feel like you're not going to go. You got to protect your Jannah, man. And don't let nobody take your Jannah away from you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.